What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of NJ Healthy Heat. I'm your host, Matthew De La Rosa. Today, I'm joined by head coach of Cleveland Community College, John Griggs. And not only is he the head coach there, but he's also a former teammate of mine. So it'll be a great conversation that we can dive in. We're going to be talking about Cleveland Community College as a program, as well as junior college and what that kind of field looks like, as well as how he goes about recruiting and what the recruiting landscape looks like right now. So, without further ado, John Griggs, I'll give you the platform. If you could just take 2 minutes to just quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, first and foremost, happy to be here, man. Glad to hop on here and talk a little shop for sure. But yeah, so I grew up in small town Lawndale, North Carolina, about an hour outside of Charlotte. Spent my high school playing days at Burns High School. And then one of your previous guests, Tom Fleenor, gave me a chance to come to Hickory, North Carolina, where I had honestly the time of my life. Um, Spent 5 years there. Played under two different coaching staffs there, so I got to see two different sides. And then, lucky for me, man, the hometown junior college had just started a baseball program. Like I was telling you before, texted Tyler Dawson, told him I wanted to help out. Easiest job interview ever. He responded with, "Yeah, man, you're going to be on staff." So, spent 1 year as an assistant as a pitching coach. Then he took a job at the Air Force Academy. And then I've been the head coach here now. This will be year 4 for me. So I've been here for 5 years. It's been a lot of fun, especially getting to do it in our hometown. But looking forward to the next 10 years. I got a long ways to go. So.
Definitely, definitely. So you played Division II baseball, and then now you're coaching in the JUCO landscape. I myself went JUCO first, and then came into the D2. So I've got firsthand experience of what that JUCO world is like. But for those that don't know, can you kind of explain the differences between what you saw at the Division II or just NCAA level compared to what you're now experiencing at the NJCAA level?
Yeah, I think the stigma of junior college has changed dramatically in the last probably 6 to 8 years. Within the last 3 or 4 years, with transfer portal and the way that stuff has kind of grown, it's became extremely competitive. The level of players that we're getting here now has, increased in the last couple years. We're getting a lot of the guys that were they've got the Division II offer, they've got the Division I walk-on offer, and they're kind of betting on themselves, like I'm gonna go play for 2 years and kind of see what happens. Because when we first started back in 2022, it was kind of just taking whatever we could get, man. Like we were bringing in 20, 30 guys a year, just getting whatever we could get. But now, the program's been around for a little bit. We've been pretty successful in the last couple of years. So the level of talent, but I think just college baseball in general now across the board is insanely talented. I think it's tough on everybody, and you got to be able to work, and you got to be able to handle a little bit of failure, and you got to be able to produce. So.
Definitely. And produce y'all have. Y'all have, had a pretty successful run at it since you've taken over. Just quickly, what is it like you mentioned you took over after the second year. What's it like taking a program that's been non-existent to, winning 30 plus, 40 plus ball games? Because that's a whole different thing that most coaches probably aren't having to experience because they're coming into a program that's been built and they're maybe tweaking it here and there. You're building it literally from scratch. So what has that been like?
Yeah, so the scary part was I was 23 years old, man. I'll never forget, after, finalizing everything and I walked in this office for the first time and Lily sat down and said, "Okay, what do I do now?" But then the cool thing was it was like, you know what, man, you're getting to build this however you want. There's no rebuilding, there's no fixing. It's kind of putting everything in place from the ground up. And uh I can't say enough about the group of guys that we had in 2022 and 2023, that not only believed in me and Tyler Dawson, who were two young guys, man. Like I think Tyler was 24 when he got it, and I was 23 when I got it. So we had a group of guys that really just believed in us and kind of, for an 18-year-old kid to really believe in the whole thing of, hey, we're building this however we want. We're getting to set the standard now. For some 17, 18, 19-year-old kids to buy into that the way they did was incredible. And I think that is a large correlation to with what we're doing now. I don't think we would be having some of the success we are now without those guys. I mean, we've sent 65 guys onto the next level in the last 3 or 4 years. Um,
I
yeah,
hear you.
yeah, probably about 20 of those being Division 1. So a lot of guys in a short amount of time, and those guys are getting to produce and they're moving on, and we're finally getting to the point where some alumni are starting to come back to watch some games and support a little bit. So I think that's cool as well. So.
Man, that's awesome. I've got two questions. I don't know which way to go. I think I'm going to go this way. When you first came on and you're trying to recruit that first class, your first class for the first time, like what is it? What are you pitching? Like, hey, man, I'm 23 years old. I'm wet behind the ears. I got no clue what I'm doing, but come play for me in this program. I promise you, I can get you to, the next level. Because that's essentially what you're selling. That's what every junior college is selling. Come here, produce, and I will get you to the next level. You didn't have any experience doing that. So what is the sales pitch at that point?
Yeah, I think we probably tried about 10 different sales pitches that year. We knew we had nice stuff, man. Facilities here are top tier. Everything was brand new, brand new weight room, new field on campus, indoor facility on campus. So we knew that was kind of the separator for us between us and other junior colleges in the area was just facilities. So we kind of hammered that. And then, starting out, we were blessed to have some scholarship money to help make it work. And it was kind of, we were getting to the point where, we were getting some talent in here, and, then it was just get those guys bought in. And we knew if we could go win a little bit in those first couple of years and show people we could do it, it would work out. And honestly, the cherry on top was being able to tell these guys, hey, every single sophomore we had on the team last year found somewhere to play. Like, we're getting these guys somewhere where they can contribute right away and make an impact. And 2 or 3 years. When I sat down and, the first staff meeting we ever had, we kind of outlined it in about 3 years and said, okay, year one, here's what we're trying to do. Year two, and then year three, everything should kind of come full circle, and then we can kind of hammer down. And, luckily, I've had some really good assistants that have made this a lot easier than it should be. And, our biggest asset, and I tell recruits this now, our biggest asset is just a piece of people involved. The players out there, the coaches we've had here, the administrations. Um, had a lot of things going in my favor. The ball's bounced my way several times when it could have easily went the other way. So very, very fortunate in that regard.
Definitely. And, there are some differences between junior college and like NCAA. What are some of the biggest kind of differences that you've seen so far between like the rules that NCAA has to play by compared to junior college? Because for a lot of people who are listening to this might be the first time that they're getting educated on junior college, and they probably think that junior college falls under the NCAA umbrella, but it does not, right? There's a whole
It does not.
separate thing that's going on that you guys play at different rules. So like what are the rules, the biggest rule set differences that you've seen?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of differences in getting into school. Getting into a junior college, is not very difficult. Pretty much anybody can get in. The other big thing is really just the guidelines and the rules you got to follow throughout the fall. The NCAA level, they've got the hours, and you can only get so many hours a day. And at the junior college level, we really get a start date and an end date, and that's it. I tell
Talk
guys.
about that a little bit, because I definitely went through that, first year, and then the second year I'm in these, oh, you can't talk to the coaches. But my first year of baseball, 7 days a week,
Yeah,
3 to 4 hours a day, you're with your coaches, you're
yeah,
practicing. So talk about that.
yeah, 100%. So, bottom line is really if we wanted to go 7 days a week, 7 hours a day, we could. Obviously we try to give them an off day, but I think at this level it helps because you get to tell these guys, hey, you got to earn the off days. Okay. If things are going well and, we're executing at a high level, then we'll make sure we get you the off day, but we don't have to. With junior college roster size, you got to go 6, 7 days a week to get everybody the reps they need, really. So, um, I think it's good because you're coming to a junior college because you want to play ball and you get all the baseball you want and then some at this level. We're going to play 20, 25 games in the fall. And we're going to go from the second week of August all the way up to Thanksgiving pretty much. So that's why I tell guys, August, September is real easy. And then you find out in October who really wants to be here. And that's where you find out where the dogs are. And, you get a lot of reps. Every hitter here gets at least 50 at bats in the fall. Every pitcher is going to get probably 15 to 20 innings in the fall. So, you get a really good sample size. And for the guys, I think it allows them at the end of the fall to have a really good understanding of where they stand. Depth chart wise, and just in the landscape of college baseball, because we're going to play some 4-year schools, we're going to play a lot of junior colleges, so you get a really broad spectrum of what college baseball is like. And it helps you figure out, do I really want to do this? It helps you figure out, where do I really need to get better at? And some people, it's a surprise to them. They're like, okay, I can do this. I actually belong here. So, um, not to mention the fact you're 18 years old living on your own for the first time. So it's kind of, you got to adapt or die, so they figure it out. They grow up a lot. And I tell my guys at least 20 times a year, I think junior college baseball is a race to see who grows up the fastest. Whoever grows up the fastest and matures the most throughout the year is usually one of those teams sitting there at the end of the year. So.
Definitely. And again, you're able to expedite that speed of which you can grow up because of the time allotted for you to be around the players and to help them develop not only on the field but off the field. I think the biggest development for me in junior college came from honestly just not going home on the weekends and just staying with the team. And I had teammates who would go home every single weekend because they lived nearby. Maybe they lived an hour and a half, 2 hours. I lived 3 hours from my home. Could have easily just gone home, but I think just staying back and living in a town in which most junior colleges are small towns where there's nothing going on, and
Yep.
just being like, all right, I'm committed to being here. I'm going to live and die by that I guess way of living, I
Yeah.
guess you could say. And that helped me understand, like, all right, there are differences between a kid who needs to go home and be around his family. Not that that's a bad thing, but also like it does show you that, like, all right, he's not maybe as committed, because when you're going home, you're probably not putting in the work. And then there's the kids that stay behind on the weekends who are getting in an extra lift, who are trying to go into the cage. So you can really expedite that stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to junior college, obviously the end goal, again, yes, you're trying to win baseball games, but you're also trying to send kids to higher places, whether it be NAIA, D1, D2, D3. What are some of the outliers that you see from guys who come into your program who are these big power four guys or these mid-major D1 guys, compared to a guy who maybe, hey, you could have gone but you didn't figure it out, and now we're sending you to maybe a lesser D3 or a D2 that maybe isn't known for its winning, and it's just like a place to go play next. What are those differences?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, it's called maturity. But under that umbrella of maturity, it's work ethic, it's the dedication, and we talk to our guys a lot, about just trying to work like a professional, man. Whether it's in the building, in school, in class, getting the reps after practice in the indoor facility, and just the way they go about their business every day. That's usually, you can watch a kid for 1 or 2 days and you can tell, where that level is. But yeah, I think the big thing is just the way they go about their business, man. How they handle those reps at practice. Are they helping some of the younger guys? Are they helping coach some guys up? And the big one is the leadership qualities, I think, too. Because here you get put in a situation where you might be relied on as a leader at 19, 20 years old before you've really had a chance to figure it out. And those guys that are able to lead at this level, and the big thing, the big one, always the hard one, is holding their teammates accountable. Finding that happy medium between, holding them accountable, staying on them, but making sure they care. I met with pretty much, we probably got about 10 or so core guys. And the first week this year, when we came back, I met with all of them. And I was like, my goal for you throughout the fall is create a personal relationship with every single player on this team. When they see you out in public and, somebody says, hey, Matt De La Rosa, I want them to be able to say, like, yeah, man, that's my boy, that's my guy, not just, yeah, I know Matt, I know him. So just the leadership qualities, the way they go about their business every day, because I think when you can do all that stuff, I think the baseball stuff takes care of itself. In the weight room, the indoor facility. Um, so yeah, it's just watching kids grow up over a year or two span, man. The ones that grow up the most and develop that routine and that work ethic, those are the guys you see moving on to Division 1 usually.
Definitely, definitely. So when you talk about, hey, you're our core group of guys, and I want you to build a relationship with every single one so that they know you. Um, Not as easily done as it is said, right? Especially at a JUCO where what is y'all's roster size? What are y'all carrying?
60. We got 60.
60, right? So you got 60 dudes. Half of those dudes aren't even going to play, come springtime. They're going to be redshirted, or they're going to be cut, or whatever it may be. Um, how do you how does a player do that? How does a player get involved with 59 other guys in an organic way where they can create one-on-one relationships? Because, like I said, it's not that easy. It might be a little bit easier, I will say, at a JUCO where you're spending much more time. But when you're at an NCAA and you're individual groups, and that's the only kind of people that you see, if you're an infielder, you're only seeing the infielders, and then maybe you see the position players. How does that guy build a relationship with, the fourth pitcher on the depth chart? Where does that come into play? If you can touch on that.
Yeah, I think it starts very early, man. You know how it was stepping on a campus as a freshman for the first time. It's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, tiptoeing around everything. So it says a lot when that guy that because you know who the guys are when you get to a school. When I got to LR, like I knew who you were. I knew who some of those other guys were. So having guys reach out to you those first couple weeks and showing that like, hey, he cares, man. Like he wants me to be involved. So that they do cookouts together, man. And just during BP, talking to that freshman pitcher that you might not ever speak to, or in the weight room, just talking to them, and it's just having people skills, man. Like once somebody figures out that hey, that person really cares about me, that way when that person does get on them a little bit, it helps. It helps. I'll never forget LR. The first week there, getting done with group work, and Hunter Martin walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, man, you wanna go to Nara's? You like Japanese?" And I'm like. Yeah, yeah, sure. So here I am with a freshman hopping in the car with Hunter Martin, going to NARS and ended up going to NARS a lot in my time in Hickory.
There you go.
But at me being 18 years old, man, at a new spot, that meant the world to me. I was like, hey, look at this older guy. He's not making me, do his laundry or putting me in a trash can. He's taking me out to eat. So. Um, but here I think it's always beautiful, man, because we've got guys from Arizona, we got a guy from Texas, Florida, Georgia, the whole East Coast, and then they end up in Shelby, North Carolina, of all places, to play college baseball. And before you know it, man, you've got your mountain boys are going to Charlotte, and your Charlotte boys are going hunting up in the mountains. So it's always a lot of fun to watch these guys come from all over the place and how quickly it comes together and how close they are. And I told him in the first meeting, this year, I was like, look around, it's pretty awkward right now. You guys looking around, don't know each other, but I was like, you guys have no idea what this is going to look like at the end of the year, man. It's going to be beautiful. It's a big family, and you're going to have more fun than you've ever had in your life. So,
Definitely, definitely. And you mentioned having kids from all over the East Coast primarily, I'd have to imagine,
mhm.
but I'm sure you can find kids across the country. How is it that you go about finding a kid in Florida? Or what is your recruiting style, and how are you finding players to bring into this program?
Yeah. So obviously when we first got here, the thing was like we cannot lose the local battles. In our area, man, there's several kind of blue blood junior colleges in this area. So it's a very good baseball area. So we knew we had to get the local guys. And once we did that, man, it was kind of marketing, making sure we were getting that logo out and people were seeing our stuff and just gaining some notoriety, really. You know how many people I called those first couple of years, like hey man, we're Cleveland Community College, and it's okay if you say you've never heard of it. And they'd be like, yeah, coach, I've never heard of it. And I was like, all right, cool, that's perfect. And then we get confused with Cleveland State and Tennessee all the time. But then we cover some ground in the summers. We're in Georgia. We're at some of those tournaments. We're at the camps and everything. But as of now, I think we've built a good enough pipeline with some of these organizations that we're getting some guys sending us guys. Twitter's obviously very big. We see video on Twitter. So just kind of covering as much ground as the JUCO budget allows. That kind of hinders us a little bit. So, but we do good. We do good with what we got. And like I said, we cover some ground, and luckily I've got some young assistants that they do a pretty good job. They're on the road. They're covering it. They're everywhere. So they do a really good job.
Now, for the parents out there and the kids out there who are wondering, how to get to a JUCO, maybe it's even your JUCO specifically. When does that time frame, when does that window open up for when you start going after guys? Obviously, there's a pecking order. Like, you got your big D1s who are going to go get their guys, and then whatever comes through that, then it's kind of free game for the rest of people, maybe you get a guy who thought he was going to be a power forward guy, and you got to convince him that, like, hey, maybe go into, I'll just throw one out there. Maybe going through an App State isn't your best, and like you can come to junior college, perform, and then we can get you over back into a Wake Forest, a Duke, a Tennessee, wherever it may be that you feel like you're ready to go to after that. But when is it that that window opens up for you and your recruiting staff?
Yeah, I would say the money time really is the summer going into your senior year. That is where, the spring, their junior year spring, that's where we've got guys out. We're getting names down and we're figuring out who we really need to dial in on the summer. And then the summer we're out watching these guys, and then towards the end of the summer we've got a list of kind of our top 40, 50 guys that we're looking at.
Mm.
And then as soon as school starts, that's kind of when we're starting the visits. Our out of state guys that we're trying to get, typically we'll do those in the summer just because we know when school starts, it's harder to get them up here. But August really through October, November, that's where it's really heavy for us. I mean, as of now, we've probably had 15 to 20 guys on campus already for this class. We've had one or two commits already. So yeah, we're usually, it's different and it changes every year, man. With the transfer portal, the kind of timeline of recruiting has changed so much, so much. Because you've got some Division I schools that, they're trying to figure out, are we going to get any high school guys this year, or are we going straight transfer portal, and so they're kind of up in the air, and we talk to these guys, and it's like, yeah, I've been on campus with a couple Division Is. They might offer, and they're hanging around waiting on that offer. But last year we were pretty much done with our class by December. We were done with this class by December, and we probably signed, I'd say two or three guys in the spring, and then maybe three or four transfers in the summer. That was it. So it's changed a lot. In 2022, 2023, we weren't signing any guys till January, February, March. After they figured out they weren't going to the Division II school, the Division I school, that's when we started getting them. But now we're getting them a lot earlier because it's like, yeah, I could walk on with that mid-major, but I want to go play for 2 years and, try to make something better out of it.
What does the recruiting budget look like? Not just at Cleveland Community College, but in general. Can you speak to junior college? I'll throw mine out there. There wasn't a huge budget. It doesn't cost much to go to probably a lot of these JUCOs. I can't imagine what the most expensive JUCO is out there. It's probably very cheap, but I know mine was super inexpensive, and I got a 25% scholarship, and it was the lowest that they could offer at junior college. So, like, what's the lowest scholarship that you guys give, and then how many scholarships I guess are there out there per each college, in each junior college?
Yeah, so each junior college gets, I think baseball gets 24 letters of intent. But you really financially, we've probably got, I'd say, 8 or 9 full letters of intent if we wanted to. So in-state tuition here's 2,400 bucks. Out-of-state tuition gets around 8,000. The largest we can offer is like 2,400. So even if they're out of state, really all we can do is 2,400. Um,
And
so
that's basically like, hey, you're a dog. Like, we're giving you the
yeah.
max we could possibly give you here.
Right, right, right. And typically, we're trying to give the money to the out-of-state guys just to try to get it down a little bit. Because, at the junior college level, some of your private junior colleges, they might be 15, $20,000. But typically you're not seeing anything above 10. And that's kind of the draw too. It's like, yeah, man, you could go that mid-major and possibly play for a year or two and, pay $50,000 a year to go there, or why don't you come here, pay 2,400 bucks for 2 years and, get 200 at bats and get a real shot at playing right away. Because, now at the Division I level, you step on campus as an 18-year-old, that guy next to you, there's a good chance he's 23, 24 years old. Where here, the oldest you're going to see is 20, 21 years old. So it gives you just a fair slate right away. And I always like watching the parents' eyes light up when I say 2,400 bucks. They're like, oh, yeah, yeah, that. You need to do that. So it's difficult to, and I think it's really just hard on the high school guys trying to figure out this whole recruiting thing because there's so many moving parts now. The NIL, the transfer portal. Maybe they're not getting some transparency from some other schools. They're kind of getting strung along. And so, it's always different. We have some guys that are ready to pull the trigger on us in September. And then we have some guys that say, I'm gonna wait till about March to make a decision. So you get a little bit of everything with us. So.
Now, how does first off, the money thing is huge. I'll say that even just going to junior college for myself for 1 year saved me upwards of tens of thousands of dollars in my overall and I still got a ton of money to go play baseball at Lenore Ryan, and even still you still have to take out a couple of loans here and there because of how expensive it is to go to school nowadays. Even if you're just going again for the chance to possibly play, you're still taking on anywhere from 15 to $40,000 depending on what your scholarship is and what school is. So I think that is a huge thing for parents and players to keep in mind, um, is that financial piece, because you're just knocking out your basics at whatever school you go to
100%.
anyways. Like that's how I saw it when I went. It's just like I got to take English 101 whether it's at Harvard or whether it's at Cisco, and I hate to compare those two because they're so vastly different. But it's not like I'm learning anything world changing here
I
in the
did
first
LR for
like
5 years,
year.
so I did
Yeah,
LR for 5 years, so I know all about the financial side of it. That's why I
there
tell
you
people,
go.
I'm like, look, it could be this or it could be this. So
Yep. So since you brought up the transfer portal, how is it that you think how is it that you guys specifically at Cleveland view the transfer portal, and then how is it that junior colleges nowadays in this landscape are utilizing the portal with bounce back guys who aren't getting re-signed, all of that good stuff? Like, what are y'all seeing from that?
yeah, there's some junior colleges that, man, they'll take 20 to 30 of them a year. It's they're getting a bunch of them. Here we take a lot of pride in the development side. Bringing the kid in that's 17, 18 years old, putting 20 to 25 pounds on him, and enhancing his experience and helping him get some bigger offers. For us, man, we kind of use it as a gap filler. If somebody goes down in the fall, we need a third baseman, we'll try to go get one at the break. And we're always trying to get arms. So obviously any transfer arms we can get, we're getting those guys. So I'd say we get 5 to 8 a year really. We're not too heavy relying on it. My thing is, I think it's just hard to build the culture and the foundation of everything. I think it's hard to do that when you're replacing 40 guys a year. We're going to lose 20 to 30 guys a year, and it's hard enough doing it like that. But having those guys get some playing time as a freshman and being able to come back for a second year and play some more, I think has been a big key to our success in the last couple of years. Would it be cool to go get 25 Division I transfers and roll the balls out and let them play for sure? But we enjoy that development side a little bit here. So we take pride in that, and that's kind of what we do, and I don't see that changing a whole lot.
Yep. And then as far as NIL goes, at the junior college level, are you seeing that anywhere? Like, is that anything that you're experiencing, or do you have any guys currently getting NIL money with like local organizations, or what does it look like across junior college?
So I know it's starting to work its way there.
Really?
Yeah, it's getting there. Some of I think basketball is probably a little bigger right now. So there's some basketball teams you'll see that maybe has like $20,000 to spend, $30,000 to spend on NIL. There's been conversations here, like we know it's coming. But I would say in the next 5 to 8 years, like it'll be a lot more evident in junior colleges. Now, you're not going to have any $1 million players, obviously, but I could see you having some guys making, 5,000, 10,000, maybe $15,000 a year.
Now, what about, and this is kind of a personal question because I'm just curious on what your take is, but what about players who understand social media and understand that they've got a finite time to you know say that they're a college player and that they can take advantage of that because they're front and center, and maybe that's the highest point in their life that they can really capitalize on their name, image, and likeness? What is your take on them trying to really exploit social media to put themselves out into a place where they can maybe get a deal on their own, a sponsorship of some sort, whatever it may be? Like, is that something that you even promote or look at, or is that something you're just like, hey man, if it's happening, cool. If it's not, like, I don't really care. Like, whatever you guys want to do, or are you saying like, hey guys, this is important nowadays. Like, this is the world we live in. Social media, unfortunately matters it to some degree. Like, you can really capitalize if you know what you're doing, if you play this game smartly off of what you're doing right here in school. So I'm interested to kind of hear your take on how you utilize, if at all, social media throughout your team.
Yeah, yeah, I'm all for it, man. Like it's I think it helps them mature a little bit because if you're trying to do that, obviously there's going to be a lot more eyes on you. There's a bigger spotlight on you. So we do talk a lot about, be careful what you post out there. That is one of the first thing that college coaches are going to look at. And depending on what field you go in the workforce, they're going to look at that. But I think nowadays most of these kids, probably 75% of them, they love that stuff anyways. Like that's what they want to do. They want to post on social media, and that's a big part of their life. Um, I know for me, like social media was kind of just popping up on the scene as a big deal when I was coming up. When I played, we didn't do the videos on Twitter all the time. That would started a couple years later. So I think social media is a big part of these kids' lives now. Love it or hate it. If I wasn't the head coach of a college baseball program, I probably wouldn't have it. I'd probably be done with it. But I'm all for it if they can do it the right way. And I think that teaches them some accountability too, because like I said, there's more eyes on you, and if they can profit from it and kind of broaden, increase their image and get their name out there, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for them kind of helping themselves out. So
Yeah, I'm big on it, man. Obviously, having the job that I'm in now, but like we didn't grow up on social media, like you said, like it wasn't anything to be on, and like it was more so of a way to like almost narc on yourself. Like
yeah,
and most of the stuff I was doing, I didn't want to be putting out there in social media anyways, but because I didn't want the eyes on me, now it's like, all right, well, it is a great way to get a message out there. It is a great way to promote yourself because in this world, in this life, there's not a lot of people who are going to put you on, and so you have to do that yourself. And I think it's been the number one way for my business specifically to grow. It's like, yo, I'm just out here posting and sending a message. But like you said, like if I'm, posting all of these good messages about how to be a better baseball player and how to be a better person, and I'm over here, not taking care of what I need to take care of, and I'm, the worst human being behind the scenes, like I ain't gonna be, growing the way that I'm growing because it's just two faced lies, and that
for
eventually
sure.
will come back to yourself. There's plenty of kids out there who are trying to promote themselves in one light on social media, and then behind the scenes, they're a completely different person. You're just like, dude, you're just fronting. You might not
Uh,
get caught on this post or this year, but like sooner or later, like people are gonna
it'll
find out
get
like what you're not really doing it. So doing it for the right reasons, making sure that you're, you know, again, trying to take care of things the right way. When it
right.
comes to recruiting, um, I always like to talk to coaches about this. Everybody's got their own kind of style of how they like to be reached out to, things of that nature. What are some tips and tricks that you can kind of put out there to the world when it comes to helping their son, their daughter, maybe, and then definitely the athlete themselves? What can they do to help themselves stand out to college coaches?
Yeah, always email's good, I think. Um, Email, you just have to be careful. You've got to keep it kind of short, concise, to the point. And because I mean, looking at my email right now, there's probably, yeah, 7,000 emails in there right now. And so you get a lot of them.
Unopened?
Yeah, it's hard, man. I go through them daily. Like I go through some of them daily. You're kind of scrolling through, trying to and think about me at the junior college level. And I think about some of these bigger schools, how many emails they've got. So you've got to get something that kind of catches somebody's attention, whether it's in the subject line or whatever it is. And you can tell when you get an email, you want to see them get straight to the point, some video, somebody to call that we can talk to somebody about them.
Like
Um,
references?
yeah, yeah, for sure. A schedule that we could go see them play, because that's the hardest thing for I think recruiting now is you see the videos on Twitter. And it looks good, man. I went 3 for 3 with two doubles and a jack. And I posted that on Twitter. But I still want to put eyes on you, man. I want to see the 0 for 4 game when you punched out 3 times. That's what I want to see. I want to see how you handle that day. So email's good. I actually got a handwritten letter this year.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and it actually had a dum dum sucker in there. I was like, that's different. That's different. So there's a million ways. You just gotta find a way to
Now,
make
did you sign the kid though?
I took a look. I took a look. I
At
was like,
least took a look.
first
At least
time.
took a
Yeah.
look.
for sure. He's on the list. I was like, this is different. It's never happened before. I was like, we definitely got to give him the benefit of the doubt. So, um, but yeah, there's so many players out there now, man. So you've got to find a way to stand out, separate yourself. However the case may be, like there's a million ways, man. You got to think outside the box a little bit. Because like I said, you're talking about the junior college head coach that's getting, 8,000 emails from high school guys. Imagine if you're looking at that Division 2 school or that Division 1 school, imagine how many they have. I think camps are good. If a school that you're somewhat interested is having a camp, you need to go, because that is time that they are there just to watch you play. Our camps will get 20 to 35 guys at a camp, so we're getting to really evaluate all 35 guys at the most. So camps are good. The summer ball stuff is good, but you got to get in front of them somehow. You got to let them put eyes on you, I think.
Yeah. In a 7,000, I guess, data point pool, when you're scrolling through and you're just like, all right, let me see what's being sent to me today. You said subject line, you said body. Obviously, you're not. It sounds like you can't watch every single video. So, what are some things that like catch your eye? What is it? Obviously, the easiest thing to point to is like, hey, coach, I'm a left-handed pitcher that throws 95. Duh,
Yeah,
right? But if you're getting, just an average type player who is a right-handed pitcher who throws in high school anywhere from 80 to 86 and can pitch a little bit. It's got some pitchability, and he wants to show that. And maybe he doesn't jump off the charts with like any statistics. What is that kid who knows he can play? And you and I both have played with guys who can do that and develop. Like, how do you market yourself to a coach, knowing that like there's 150 million other kids out there who have better, I guess, metrics than you, and you
yeah.
know that. How do you market yourself?
Yeah, obviously, for us, so what we're really looking at is the physicality side of it. We're looking at the guy that honestly was like me, 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", got room for 20 to 25 more pounds on him. But yeah, it's the the physicality side is really the separator between our guys and the Division 2, Division 1 guys. Every guy we have here can play. It's turning that 84, 86 into 87 to 90, really. And trying to market yourself, like it's not easy nowadays, just because there's so many guys trying to play college baseball. They're trying to get the best offer they possibly can. Everybody puts in there in the subject line, 6 foot right-handed pitcher, 82, 85. Like, tell me something that's going to make me, I see that probably 100 times a day, put something in there that's going to make me go, what's this? Something different, something about yourself, strong leadership qualities, or just something that is different from everybody else. Something's going to catch somebody's eye. Because like I said, all the emails, you get the 6'5", 220, 115 mile per hour exit velo, or 6 foot.
I mean, we're taking a look at that guy. All right,
Yeah, you know what
we're
I
taking
mean?
a look at 6'2", 220, 115 exit below.
Yeah. So it's put something in there that's a little different, Also, football is something that's just different than everybody else. You got to catch their eye somehow, and it's kind of, if you think about our program, it's kind of what we did from a marketing standpoint. How many other Yetis have you ever heard of? We knew we were late to the game, and that was part of their reasoning behind choosing the Yeti mascot. Is it was like nobody else is the Yetis. Well, at least they'll remember who we are, and that logo is going to catch some eyes. So, just something a little different, and that's in the recruiting world. I've had several recruits tell me, like, Coach, not gonna lie to you, man, that's the coolest logo I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it.
Now, what is a Yeti?
It's like a Bigfoot, man. It's mixed between an abominable snowman and a Bigfoot. A
And are
nice.
Yetis real? Does a Yeti exist in this world?
I feel like I have to say yes, they do. I have to, support the theory that they do exist.
There you go.
I
There you
hated
go.
it at first. I hated it at first. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't like it. I didn't like the colors. But you would be amazed at the places I go with that logo, and people are like, "What is that?" And I tell them like, "Where can I get one of those hats?" And I'm like, well, you got to go to Shelby, North Carolina to get one of those
There
hats.
you
So good
go.
luck.
Now at a showcase, when you guys are either hosting a showcase at your camp or at your school, or you're going in and visiting, and you're one of the coaches being hosted at a showcase, what stands out to you? What can a player do to help himself stand out at one of these showcases where there's 35 guys and that's on the smaller side? What about when there's 100, 150 guys there? Like what really grabs coach's attention? Is it the exit velo? Is it the arm strength? Like those are the easy ones. Like how does a kid stand out if he doesn't run a 6'5", throw it 95 miles an hour and hit balls to the trees?
Yeah, you know those things always for sure stand out. The big one for me, I think, is just how you interact with everybody else while you're there. Does it got to be the flashiest there? No, I just want to see the way you move. I want to see the way you interact with other people that you might not know. And especially when they're playing games. I want to see how you do when it's not going your way. When you do get that 0-2 strike three called, it's probably not a strike, but I want to see how you handle that. I want to see, do you go in the dugout and sit in the back and pout for the next 5 minutes, or is it your 15 seconds of being upset with yourself and then I'm right back on the fence, kind of helping out up there. But that's the biggest thing that I've noticed with guys in the last couple of years is just the how they handle failure, how they interact with their teammates. Because if you can't be a good teammate and at a showcase camp, if you can't interact with those other dudes out there playing ball, having a good time, you're going to have a hard time on a college roster. You're going to have a hard time hanging out with those guys. And just the work ethic, like, is it wide open or am I trying to be pretty? So for us, it's really trying to determine who looks good on Twitter and who's a ball player.
Yeah. What are some of the big schools that you guys are, sending guys to? What can people expect if they come to Cleveland Community College? Like, where do y'all have track record? Obviously, you can send a kid to any school and they can be the first one that you send to that school. But where do y'all have some success right now?
Yeah, obviously we sent a lot of guys to LR. I'd say the SAC conference, man. Obviously I played in that league for 5 years, so I got to know some of those coaches really well. Sent a couple to LR, sent a couple to Mars Hill, couple to Coker, couple to Newberry. Division 1 wise, we've sent 3 or 4 guys to Queens. We sent a guy to the Air Force Academy. We had a shortstop go to the Air Force Academy a couple years ago. We had a catcher go to the University of New Mexico. Um, we've had guys go to VCU, Davidson, Marshall, Southern Indiana, Bethune-Cookman. Um, Valdosta State. I mean, all over the place, man. It's the college baseball network's so big now. I tell guys like I either know somebody at that school or I know somebody who knows somebody at that school. And what we do is early on, their first year here, we'll sit down with them and say, hey, give me 3 schools that you think you can play at or that you want to play at. Give me 3 schools that you think you can play at, and give me 3 schools that you know you can play at. So that way we get a pretty good gauge of, hey, he wants to stay in this area. He's just looking for this certain level. And we kind of take on the role of an advisor for him, really. The big thing we talk to him about is, look, we're not chasing a title. We're not chasing, hey, I just Division 1 baseball. We want you to go somewhere that, not only that you're going to enjoy, okay, but 2, somewhere you can make an impact. Because you spent 2 years here. We're not going to spend another year not playing somewhere, waiting on a spot. Like, you need to go somewhere that you can compete for 2 years and make an impact. And then finally, we tell them, like, look, do you think you could go to that school and not play baseball? And if that answer is no, then it's probably not a good fit for you there. So, yeah, we take on the role of advisor, and we're on the phone for them, calling schools, doing whatever we can. But anywhere in North Carolina, South Carolina for sure. And then, like I said, we've built a pretty good network over the last couple of years that we can get them pretty much anywhere they want to go as long as they're doing what's necessary.
Yeah, that's interesting. I take the same approach with a lot of the high school kids that I work with, and it's more than three, obviously. When you're in high school, you got to expand the net a little bit further. But I have them go 15 schools that like I would even say 10, probably 10 more, 10 on the it would be a dream school,
Hmm.
15 to 20 of like, hey, it would really be cool to play here, and like I think I can play here, and like 10 more of hey, I know I can play here. I had a buddy go to this school, and I'm just the same level as he is, and I could probably go to
Right.
this level, and that opens it up to 30, 35. I think a lot of the actually, I'll ask you this question. What are some questions that kids need to have answered when they're looking at schools for themselves in high school?
Like as far as like when they're trying to like when I'm
When
asking
they're
them,
trying to decide, I think one of the biggest questions that I always ask kids is like, how far are you willing to go?
yeah,
Like what is the radius that you're putting if you're living in North Carolina and a school from California calls, are
yeah.
you going?
I think you definitely need to have some goals in mind. When I sit down with a recruit and I go, what's the end game for you? What's the goal here? You find out really quick how committed that kid is. If it's, I just want to play as long as I can, man, or I want to go to this school and I want to do this and I want to make it to pro ball, and like you learn very quickly. Um, but usually when we sit down with them, that's one of the first things I ask is, what's your goal, man? Like, what's you come here for a couple years? What's the end game for you? Um, and the other one I like to know, but I don't think it's largely important because when I say this, you'll know is what do you want to do with your life? Like, what do you want to do with school and everything? And ultimately, you probably don't figure that out till you're a junior in college, anyways.
Bro,
Uh,
you don't figure that out for some people until you're 50. I didn't figure that out until I was 30. I
yeah,
think that's a tough
100%.
question to ask a kid.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. Some people know, but the mass majority of us, if they tell you that they know, they're probably lying. They
Yeah,
don't know
but
yet.
one thing that we do some that I've come to really like is, when we've had kids on campus and we're kind of, building that relationship with them, we like to we'll keep up with their high school scores, and when we see them lose a close game, we'll call them immediately after that game. Because I want to hear how he is after that loss. If it's, hey coach, yeah, 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 no, he was fine, and I can tell he's pissed about it. I'm like, all right, my guy don't like to lose. That's good because I think that's a big thing now is, finding the guys that want to win, man. They want to compete, they want to win. So we'll call a guy after a loss just to kind of gauge. And if he's like, yeah, we got beat, but I was 2 for 4 with two doubles, that tells me priorities really aren't in the right spot there. So I think that's one interesting thing that we do is call them directly after a loss and see how they're feeling about it.
Yeah, never heard that. That's awesome. I'm definitely clipping that one. That one's going on social media for sure. I think
Yeah.
that'd be unique. Last question here. I appreciate the time that you've been able to give not only me but the people who are listening to this. Um, this one specifically for our junior college players, right? The guys that you grind with every single day. This is a message for a young Matthew Del Rosa who's after his freshman year or looking for his next school. Obviously you have the best intentions. You want to help all 60 guys get to that next school, but at the end of the day, you and you're a staff of probably four. You guys got some guys on staff who are teaching maybe in the school or maybe have other jobs that they're doing as well on top of this. And you can only do so much for that player, right? There's easy players who are in your starting nine and they put up big numbers and it's easy to make a couple calls and be like, yo, this guy, like you need this guy. But for the players who are role players or maybe don't see the field a ton, how can they help themselves get to that next school that doesn't involve waiting around for John Griggs to pick up the phone and email a coach? Like what is something that they can actively be doing, whether it's training, whatever it may be? I'll let you answer that, but what can they do?
I think the first step is you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror, and you've got to be able to be open and honest with yourself about, okay, like I've really got to get better in this area, or I've really got to get better here. Um, and I tell my guys, like, it's fine for you guys to reach out to schools. Like, you need to make sure you put something about junior college in that email because you got a better chance of that email getting opened if they say junior college. But the biggest thing, man, is I've seen so many guys come through here that just did not have the ability to be honest with themselves and understand that just in certain areas what they were doing was not good enough. And I've seen several guys come sit in this office right here and hey, what do I got to do? And I tell them, hey, simply just offensively, you're just not good enough, or physically, we've got to get more physical. And the guys that go, okay, yeah, you're right, and then they go get to work on that. I think too many guys just like working on the things they're good at. I don't think there's not a large enough number of athletes that enjoy working on the things they're not good at. They want to go take, 3 rounds of 5 and hit it over the scoreboard and, move on where, you might struggle with that breaking ball in the outer half. Go work on that. Or, you might struggle with a high tee drill. Go work on that. Go work on what you're not good at. So I think it's very and it's hard to really be honest with yourself and be like, I'm not very good at that. Especially 18, 19 years old. So be able to look yourself in the mirror, be able to hold yourself accountable and have those tough conversations. And if you are curious as to why you're struggling or what you got to do, go ask, but be able to handle that answer. It might not be an answer you want to hear, but you got to be able to hear it and take it and understand it's coming from a good place and that everybody here wants to see you succeed. I tell my guys, I want all 60 of you to succeed because, to get you guys recruited, you got to win. People don't recruit losers. These 4-year schools aren't going to come watch us for not winning. So, be able to understand your role, be a good teammate. That's the other big one too, man. Like even if you're not playing, you gotta learn how to be a good teammate. We spend probably before our first game this past weekend, we spent some time talking about how to be in the dugout. Because these guys get to college and they're used to playing every single game. They've never had to sit through a baseball game and not play. So it's a little bit of adjustment. It was adjustment for me. I was never just a pitcher only. So when I got to college and I was just kind of sitting there for 6 days a week and getting to play for one day a week, it was an adjustment. But for me, I think that's where my love for coaching came from was I got to see the game in a much different way. So, but yeah, be able to look yourself in the mirror, hold yourself accountable, and be able to help others around you get better. I think that's a big quality. When these 4-year schools call me, first thing they ask is what's the GPA. That's the first one. The next one is what kind of leadership qualities does he have, and then the third one is can he make others around him better? And when you check all 3 of those boxes, you're going to be pretty successful.
That was a great answer. I know I said last question, but you said something that sparked something. I just want to know what you're saying. You said that you're having conversations about how to be in the dugout, and you're talking to your guys about what to do. What are you saying to them? Like, what is that message?
Yeah, just find any possible way to help us have just that much more of an advantage that day, man. Whether it's on the offensive side, are you getting the pitcher's timings? Are we figuring out his timings to get better jumps on the base paths? Are you picking up pitcher tendencies? Are you stealing the other coach's signs? Are you picking up signs? Just anything, man. There's a million ways. Or are you going to that guy after he punched out and just giving him a little pat on the back, say, hey, bud, hey, one AB can change the day. Pitching, or are you seeing something with their hitters? There's a million ways, man, and we just challenge our guys to just find some way to help us win that day, whether it's being a cheerleader, whether it's keeping a chart, whether it's seeing something out in the field that us coaches didn't see, just any way possible, because you did both sides, so it's a lot easier to play as a hitter, I think, when you're up there in the box and you can feel 30, 40 guys behind you over there a little bit, rather than it being real quiet and you feel like you're on an island up there. Everything gets tense a little bit. And same thing on the mound. It's hard to pitch when that dugout's quiet. But when you feel 40 of your brothers back there behind you, getting a little rowdy, it gets you going. We up the ante a little bit and it's a little easier to compete. So just find a way to help each other win. Find a way to help each other be better today than they were yesterday. And when you get a group of 60 guys that believe in that, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Damn. Hey, great conversation today. Where can people learn more about you and Cleveland Community College? Are you on social medias? What are your social media handles? I'll put them into the link below. So if you guys are listening to this on any one of your podcast sites, they're going to be in the description. If you're listening to this on YouTube, it'll be down below. But where can people follow you?
Yeah, basically, if you look up CCC Yeti Baseball, pretty much anywhere, you'll find Twitter, Instagram, and our website. I know the Twitter handles CCC Yetis underscore BSBL, and the Instagram account similar to that too. So you Google that, you'll find the website. You'll find our coaching staff on there. I've got 4 really great assistants on there. Email should be on there too. Reach out to us. And we've also got a camp coming up in November 15th. Sign up for camp, baby.
Yeah, that's a great day. That's the day your host, everybody out there, your host was born, November 15th.
There you
What's
go.
the email so I can drop that in there as well?
John R. Grigg 55 at gmail.com.
There you go. There you go. And for those that are not following NJ Healthy Heat, definitely hit that follow button, subscribe button, whatever it is. You don't want to miss content like this. Yeah, John, appreciate the time today, brother. That was great.
Always, always happy to be here, man.